Aikwe, Neknamalita. This is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. Today I will be talking about my review of A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this book is, one, I didn't enjoy it, and two, it was one of my most anticipated, I guess reverse that. One, it was one of my most anticipated books for 2022, and two, I did not enjoy it. So I figured, why not talk about it? It was a book of the month pick. It was one of the early releases, and I remember seeing it, just kind of exploring Leroy FM. I did not listen to this, I actually read it. And it was my December pick. It came out in December for book of the month. It was a January 11th published date. So let's get into what the book is about. We are following Chloe Davis, who when she was 12, there was a string of missing girls, and it turns out that her dad was the result of that. So her dad being in jail, and Chloe and her family kind of had to deal with the result of him being found guilty and put into jail, and the aftermath of that. Years later, Chloe is now a psychologist. In Baton Rouge, she has her own practice. She's getting ready to get married to this man and like find the happiness that she's been seeking for since her dad went to prison, essentially. But when a string of new missing and murdered girls are starting to show up in the similar style to her father's, Chloe can't help but see some parallels. Now, are these parallels really there, or is Chloe being paranoid? That's what she's determined to find out. By the synopsis, I should have realized that I wasn't going to like this book because it kind of gives that unreliable narrator trope right off the bat. And I dislike that trope immensely, I'm finding, particularly when the particular narrator that we're following, for instance the protagonist, is popping pills and mixing them with alcohol. Now, I know this is a serious problem that people are dealing with. I don't know to what extent. I know that this is a problem within society, though, that's what people are dealing with. However, as a book trope, I don't like it, mostly because they don't tend to seek help for it, and it's not something that gets resolved, really. So this happened in another book that was really popular. What was it? A Woman in the Window. Didn't like it because they are trying to not think about their past, some kind of past trauma. Chloe Davis does not want to think about the fact that her father is in prison, that he was the cause of some serial murders, despite them not finding the bodies. So I don't know if that's necessarily, like, does that still count even though the bodies aren't found? Like, does that still count as a serial murder? I don't know. There were so many things with this book that I did not enjoy. The main portion was the unreliable narrator. So like I said, didn't like the fact that popping pills and alcohol is a thing, particularly with ignoring trauma. And as a psychologist, I would have hoped that she would have some kind of resolve from that, and she didn't. So this book ultimately reminded me of Woman in the Window meets The Maidens, because we have the unreliable narrator trope that Woman in the Window has, but we also have a psychologist that's getting into investigation that she really shouldn't be getting into, hence The Maidens. But it's also the whole time we're going, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing that? What the fuck are you doing? And that's basically my whole thing with this, was that the whole time I was just like, what are you doing? Led me to wonder like what kind of psychologist she was, because ultimately it was like, I get that not all psychologists have their own psychologist, and I get that that's like, but at the same time, like, I don't like this new trend of we're gonna have psychologists not want a psychologist because they think they can solve themselves out. Not that I am aware of the psychology profession, really. I'm aware of it, but I'm not like in tune with it at all. But it just seems really ridiculous to me that this particular protagonist, who is a psychologist, will just refuse to go seek help because she can help herself. That was the whole point of her becoming a psychologist. My other issue with this book is that there was some things said in here that made me feel like the tonality was very willfully ignorant and privileged. The reason I say that is because I have a couple tabs here, and they're the only 2 tabs I put in this book, but I call them my what the fuck tabs. There was a couple sentences said, oh, there was three tabs. All of them what the fuck. There's a what the fuck part 1, because one thing I don't understand is when someone says acres and acres of untouched land. What does that mean? I spent almost all night just kind of sitting after reading that line going, what does untouched land mean? Like, untouched is in terms of undeveloped. Undeveloped by who? A corporation? Just because it's not like there's no mini mall or some shit like that. Like, what does untouched mean? Because it sure as hell isn't untouched by humans. Because I can guarantee you that there was some indigenous people before, like, this particular person. So this acres of land is for a wedding venue. I can guarantee that there was someone in some indigenous people there that was doing something to it before these settlers, colonialists ended up coming in and were there for generations. So untouched by who? Because it's not them. The wedding venue itself, it's not untouched. I have no doubt that they prune and everything, which is fine. I get it. But my what the fuck part 2 was because at one point the main character is concerned about bugs, because they plan on having the wedding in July in Louisiana, and she's worried about bugs. And the wedding venue host is just like, oh, we spray for bugs every year. So it's not untouched by chemicals. What does untouched land mean? So the whole time I was just like, what does this mean? I don't understand what this means. And it was just very, when the bodies start showing up, which hadn't been, so that's one thing I was kind of irritated with, is that when the girls are going missing, the girls are linked to, okay, we're getting into some spoilery territory. Girls are going missing. The girls in particular are finding that they're being, or our narrator is finding that they're linked to her, but she doesn't know quite how yet. So when they're showing up, she's watching the news, and that's one thing is that she's seeing parallels with is just like, oh, they're being strangled. That's how my father killed them. And it's just like, wait, how do you know that? Their bodies weren't ever found. They don't actually know if they were dead or not. Yeah, at this point they probably are, but it's like that was never said. That was never said about your father's case. At one point, she ends up saying, humans aren't supposed to die that young. It's unnatural. Unnatural to who? To me, this immediately just like put up red flags in terms of, okay, so for all the women that have been trying to conceive and have fertility issues, that's unnatural. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean dying that young is unnatural? There are, like, plenty of things, I don't know. It's just, like, hit the wrong way for me, because it wasn't until we understood vaccines and started getting these out that we started having longer life expectancies. Like, but also, like, we have plenty of diseases, heart disease and others that could end a life early. Usually it is heart disease of some sort. Sometimes they're rare, sometimes they're not. But it was like, ultimately, which is like, that's a very privileged thing to say. That's a very white American privileged thing to say. Like, there are plenty of other countries that don't have the benefits that we have, whose young people unfortunately die young because of whatever, hunger, disease, for like shit that America for some reason has limited to them because of profit, no doubt. So that was just, what the fuck. Also, there was another one that I didn't tab that was also what the fuck moment. So there was 4 tabs of what the fuck moments. There was another what the fuck moment in terms of, I don't quite, the quote's gonna be off because I didn't tab it, but I remember going, what? Because she says that since she was 12, like, she finally missed her mother. Something ends up happening to her mom that makes it, to their mom, that makes it hard for her to take care of them. And it later in this book, you're kind of told why. But at one point, like, she's not really in their lives. And I get that it's an iffy thing, because it was one of those things where her mom wasn't trying to be in their life anymore. And I get that Chloe the narrator, Chloe Davis, has had issues with this, because it's just like, you abandon us. You willfully tried to do this thing and tried to abandon us. Like, you did abandon us. And so she has this issue throughout the whole book that I don't think was ever resolved. I think it was kind of resolved in terms of her figuring out what her mom's lens was. But at one point she's talking with her mom, and she says, like, since she was 12, she has not ever missed her mom till now. Really? In the whole time that your mom's been like this, and that you've never missed your mom at all? Like, it was just, I don't know. There was just issues with this book. There was also just like too many red herrings. It was to the point where, like, I think we were supposed to feel bad for her love interest, but the whole time, like, I'm like, if it's not him, he, like, I don't care if it's him or not at this point, because he's an asshole. Like, to make their wedding day the 20th anniversary of her dad going to prison. Like, the whole time, I did not feel for him at all. I did not root for them. And when it came to the point where he, like, it turned out that he was not the person, the antagonist, I just didn't care at that point. It was like, get rid of him. And it got, like, once it got to that point, I'm like, I get it. It wasn't him. You were really leaning hard to that, though. Like, to the point where it's like, mom was spelling out the name, but she only got to the first 2 letters, so who knows what that could have meant. And then we never talked about that again. When it finally did come out of who was actually killing these girls, I didn't care. It got to the point where halfway, like, by the time I got halfway through this book, I was skim reading it, because I just wanted to know who did it. And even by that point, I'm like, okay, whatever, he didn't build up enough of a relationship for me to care that it was this person. So finally. And then even at the end of it, it's just like they were trying, I don't know what they were trying to do. This was bad. I did not like this. I gave this 1 star. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. I, like, was just really frustrated with this. This was like, I haven't given a 1 star. I don't think I gave any 1 stars out in 2021, but way to go. Like, was this January? Yeah, this was January. Way to go. First one, and it was an anticipated release of that. So that sucks, because it was a interesting cover. Aside from, like, the slight hint that it was an unreliable narrator, this could have been a good book. Well, it had intrigue to be a good book, but ultimately no, it was, I disliked this book. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts down below. Like, I could be way off, but this is what I'm getting from this, and like, if you love this book, good on you. It did not work for me whatsoever. If you made it this far, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down in the description down below. If you have yet to do so already, hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon to get notified when I post more content. I hope that you are in the mental mindset to enjoy your reading. Like, hopefully it was better than this one. And I will see you in my next video very soon. Chew!